All right, so we're watching. The day is really kicking off now. At any moment, we're told President Biden will be departing Camp David, where he has been for a full week, for Atlanta to come face-to-face with Donald Trump on the debate stage for the first time in 4 years for those two. And we don't even know if the two will shake hands or anything. We do know they'll be standing closer together this time. So instead of the usual, 12 feet, they'll be 8 feet apart with their lecterns. The uncertainty and expected fireworks are why it's expected to be the most watched presidential debate in history. And one of the key questions tonight is whether Biden's week-long debate prep at Camp David will pay off, or will Trump do better, going out on the campaign trail and having more of a mixed prep? This is Outnumbered. I'm Harris Faulkner, here with my co-host Kayleigh McEnany. Joining us today, the story anchor Martha McCallum, Fox News contributor and president of American Spirit Enterprises, Tammy Bruce, and Fox News contributor, senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute, and former speechwriter to President George W. Bush, Mark Thiessen. So I know you and Kayleigh have gotten ready for tonight. Yes. At different points in history, and I can't wait to get into that. Jacqui Heinrich is at the White House for us with details on how President Biden has been preparing. I'm just dying to know, what do you do for a week at Camp David with 16 advisors?
Well, apparently come up with some one-liners, Harris. We'll get into that in just a minute. But the Biden campaign ahead of this debate, before a single word has even been said, sent out a list of important Trump lies to look out for, circulating a fact check on issues like abortion, the economy, immigration, and more. But according to a new Politico report, one thing we can all watch out for tonight is for Biden to make an early effort in the debate to get Trump to again deny the results of the 2020 election.
He's obviously not going to present the Donald Trump who's been out at his MAGA rallies on the stump. But the problem for Trump is that he's going to have to answer for all the things he has been saying at those MAGA rallies.
For the last week, Biden campaign staffers have reportedly been drafting jabs for Biden to get under Trump's skin, zeroing in on his 2020 election loss and January 6th after reviewing Trump's most fiery social media posts and appearances. But Biden's also girding himself for Trump's attacks on his son Hunter, an issue that Biden's most sensitive about. The strategy there, reportedly, is to, quote, flash a little anger that could resonate with Americans whose own families have struggled with addiction. Biden will try to overall appear as the adult in the room and cast Trump as dangerous and chaotic. Now, Trump has taken the opposite approach with his preparations, holding no mock debates, opting instead for policy talks on the campaign trail.
President Trump has met with policy advisors to focus on the issues, again, that voters care about across this great country. Other than that, he's been continuing with his very busy schedule. He doesn't need advisors to drill talking points into his brain. He knows what he wants to say.
The Trump campaign is resetting expectations for Biden after attacking his age and mental acuity, saying instead they expect his week-long study at Camp David will leave Biden well prepared tonight. But they're not entirely abandoning the age issue.
Do you think the guy who was defeated by the stairs makes it 4 more years in the White House? And you know who's waiting behind him, right? Vote Joe Biden today and Kamala Harris tomorrow.
And we'll get our first glimpse of the president in a week, any moment now, when he heads to Atlanta, Harris.
All right, Jacqui, great reporting today. Thank you.
Thanks.
Well, after an entire week away from the White House, Fox News chief political analyst Brit Hume is warning President Biden that he had better be ready for the debate when it finally kicks off.
Well, normally, you do have to bone up to some extent to remember details. But what this president is going through is quite unusual because the president, by the very nature of his or her job, his job so far, is cognizant of the details of these major issues. You have to deal with them all the time. So this level of preparation is unusual, and it probably knows something to the fact that, Biden is pretty old and his memory is not so good, and people have seen that, and they see how awkwardly he walks and all the rest of it. So they're obviously trying to get him mega prepped in the hope that he can get through this encounter with Donald Trump and look like a vibrant man.
Brit Hume always knows just how to put it. So if they're trying to get Biden to practice trigger points or trigger words for Trump, I would imagine a trigger word for Biden would be, okay, it's beginning now, and it's after 9 o'clock. You have to stand for 90 minutes. That would put fear, perhaps. We'll see how he does. Meanwhile, the liberal media and Democrats have some advice for the President Biden.
Joe Biden has to go out there with a self-own on the age thing. I mean, I'm so old I may not make it through the next 90 minutes without needing to sit down and taking a sip of water, but I'll never disgrace the office of the presidency. I mean, he has to come in there and punch him in the face with his own boast.
When the age question comes, and it's one that President Biden wants, say it is true that I'm 81. Also, I'd like to wish my opponent happy belated 78th birthday.
What he can say is, look, this isn't about my future or his future. We're both at the ends of our careers here. This is about your future, and the question you have to ask is this person going to fight for me, or is this person going to fight for themselves? Yeah. And that is very, very clear.
So that started off with an acknowledgement that the president might not be able to stand for 90 minutes. I mean, I was joking. I think she was too, but I mean, I wouldn't expect Democrats to be talking about that so boldly, so
Ronald
close to the
Reagan
debate.
famously said that I've given strict orders that during a cabinet meeting, if something happens, please wake me up. but the problem is, unlike Ronald Reagan, Joe Biden can't address the age issue with a zinger because it's not morning in America again. When Ronald Reagan, the majority of Americans thought his presidency was great. The economy was booming. Everything was going great. Joe Biden's a disaster. No one would care about Joe Biden's age if the inflation were low, the world was at peace, the border was secure, and people's pocketbooks were better off and they weren't paying $125 for a $100 basket of groceries.
Wow. There you go. Can you call KGP and let her know how that works? The inflation and pricing? Every time she talks about it, my brain explodes. Martha, it is interesting. They both had the job of president before. And they would both be, if Biden can't hold on to it, two men who at one point didn't win back-to-back terms, right? We've seen that throughout most of history, not every time, but usually an incumbent wins. What do you see as some of each man's weaknesses this evening?
Well, just to address the age issue, it's interesting that Ronald Reagan was younger than both of them when he left office. So, people think of Reagan as this older president. He had some cognitive issues that we became more aware of later, but he was 78 when he left office. So these gentlemen are, definitely into that next generation. Also, I'm reminded of Reagan's, sort of jab at Mondale. I won't hold my opponent's youth and inexperience against him.
That doesn't work here.
Another line that can't happen here, okay? So it is what it is, right? And we're dealing with two older people who have both been president of the United States, as you point out. When you look at their strengths and weaknesses, when you look back at earlier debates that Biden has been participating in, and there have been, I think, about 30 plus of them. He's been doing this a long time.
50 years.
His sort of go-to has been this smile and kickback, big smile. Like when he was with Sarah Palin, while she was going on and on, he was just like, yeah, well, whatever, you know? And he had this it kind of did. He had this very sort of jovial, senatorial, been around a long time vibe. And I don't know if he has that anymore, but that has been his strength in the past. So, and Trump, is so uneven, right? We've seen him go all, whole hog heat, like we saw in early 2020. That didn't work. I think, the town hall that Brett and I did with him, he was very spot on and he knew who his audience was. And I think that's the Trump he's going to try to be tonight.
And because of that, Martha, not to belabor the point too much, but because of that, it probably helped Trump to be out on the campaign trail because there won't be an audience tonight, and he does kind of feed off that energy. So he's fresh off of hearing directly from and talking to voters. Tammy, as we watch tonight, everybody's kind of looking for a different thing. What do you think independents, and specifically suburban women who don't support former President Trump, what do you think they're watching for tonight?
I think a lot of what we've already discussed is baked in, right? People know we've gone through the January 6th situation. We know what his response is to that. We've seen him go through a trial and sit there and talk about things after the trial. So we know Donald Trump. And we're not expecting to see anything different. And his popularity remains because he is always himself. And sometimes part of that is erratic, right? It's like, well, that's Donald, right? We know circumstances. He's a regular person. You know that he's responding like we respond. Suburban women and others who I think are already making their minds up regarding the economy are going to make sure, and they want to hear what his plans are regarding those issues.
73% of people who were asked, adults who were asked, say that they'll be watching tonight. And Jacqui Heinrich gave an interesting Quinnipiac poll number today, 16%, which is relatively higher than what we've thought. will have their minds change tonight, potentially, on who they plan to vote for.
Yes, all the more reason to be on offense tonight. Look, if I were talking to Trump right now, I would say to him, you are walking into politically enemy territory. There will be a temptation to be on defense all night, but go on offense, because every moment you're talking about January 6th in the cases is a moment you're not talking about inflation. And I would give him pivot points. So, for instance, on January 6th, I would say, look, you guys are living in the past. You want to talk about one day 4 years ago? I want to talk about every day over the last 4 years that you, President Biden, have driven this country into the ground. On the cases, defend yourself briefly and say, look, I'm on CNN. A CNN analyst here said this was the Frankenstein case, said it was cobbled together with ugly parts and would turn on its creator. And by the way, I believe the creator was you, Joe Biden. But here's what I want to talk about. Not my cases, the cases of illegal immigrants that have killed America's moms and daughters. And by the way, President Biden, can you name for me one of the women who was killed in the last 7 days because of your border policies? Do you think he knows Jocelyn Ngari?
I bet he does.
He does.
I was thinking the same thing this morning. I was like, does he know the names? If Trump turns to him and says, can you name one of these women for me? I think after 16 people have been training you for
Martha,
a week, you better know his name.
Martha, I don't know. He didn't say Laken Riley. He called her Lincoln Riley.
You got it wrong.
I think he did that on the
reason why I
fly,
hope they spend some time on that.
I think Martha's got a good point. I think the reporting was that he had done that on the fly with Laken Riley's name. What you're pointing to is that Brit Hume, the same thing. You're both saying the same thing. He'd better be ready after a week. He'd better know the names and so on and so forth. Really quickly, how do you bring up the border tonight, and what would the zinger be when it happens?
Oh, you're putting me on the spot for a zinger.
Yeah, I am, because I don't have a whole lot of faith that the moderators are really going to. I mean, if you go by how often that network does not report the border prices.
Building on what Kayleigh said about pivoting quickly, answering quickly, and then pivoting, what I would say when they bring up January 6th, on January 6th, the border was secure. On January 6th, inflation was low. And January 6th, the world was at peace. And so that's what the American people care about.
That's the way to do it. Brilliant.
That's the White House speechwriter in you. Okay, let's move. This is fun. All right, so more Americans have tuned into Fox News Media's coverage of critical political events than any other source. And tonight, we know will be no exception. You can join us. Watch the presidential showdown live right here on Fox News. And our special coverage begins at 8 p.m. Eastern. Martha is here, and she'll be there along with our chief political anchor of Special Report, Bret Baier. So we expect the executive editor right alongside of him to not only inform us, but also make it memorable. So, Martha, thank you. Dana Perino, Sean Hannity, Jesse Waters, all part of our special coverage this evening. And Kayleigh will be on primetime with Jesse Waters tonight, along with a team of Fox News political analysts and contributors. And it doesn't stop there. We also have live coverage of the debate and Spin Room live from the White House. Watch the Fox News coverage of the presidential debate. It all starts at 8 p.m. Eastern and goes into late tonight. Trace Gallagher's on at midnight. I'll see you with Brett at 6 p.m. The whole gang, we're all together, one big family.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kayleigh McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.